I want to start with a fear that lives in the back of every Alzheimer's caregiver's mind. You step away for a few minutes. You answer the phone, use the bathroom, check on something in another room. And when you return, the person you're caring for is gone. The front door is open. The yard is empty. And you have no idea which direction they went or how long they've been walking. That moment, that stomach-dropping realization, is one of the most terrifying experiences in all of Alzheimer's caregiving. And it happens more often than most families expect, often before they've put any safeguards in place. If you are caring for someone with Alzheimer's and wandering hasn't happened yet, I want you to hear this clearly. The time to prepare is now, before the first incident. Because the safeguards that protect someone who wanders are most effective when they're already in place, not assembled in a panic after someone has already left the house alone and gotten lost. Today we're drawing from the National Institute on Aging's specific guidance on wandering and getting lost in Alzheimer's disease. And I want to build towards something that most caregivers don't discover until they're already in crisis. A layer of protection that works even when every other safeguard fails. Stay with me. Let's start with the reality of wandering in Alzheimer's. Because understanding what's actually happening when a person wanders changes how you think about prevention. Wandering is not random. It is not mischief. It is not a deliberate attempt to leave or to escape. In most cases, it is purposeful behavior filtered through a brain that has lost its ability to navigate reliably. The person is going somewhere, to a job they no longer have, to a childhood home that no longer exists, to find a person they're looking for who may have died decades ago. They have a destination in mind. They simply can't find it, and they can't find their way back. That understanding matters. It means the person who has wandered is not lost in the way you or I might be lost. They don't have the cognitive resources to recognize that they're disoriented, to ask a stranger for help, to recall their address or phone number, or to reason their way back home. They are following an internal navigation system that is giving them faulty directions. And without external help, they may keep walking indefinitely. This is why wandering becomes dangerous so quickly, and why the safeguards need to be multiple, layered, and in place before they're urgently needed. Let's talk about the first layer of protection. What happens if the person wanders and gets lost? Because this is where most caregivers start their planning. And while it should not be the only layer, it is the most critical one to establish immediately. The person must always carry identification, not eventually. Always. A medical ID bracelet with their name, address, and your phone number is the standard. If the person tends to remove bracelets, label their clothing directly. Name and phone number sewn or printed into garments they wear consistently. GPS tracking devices are now widely available and increasingly practical for this purpose. A GPS device, worn as a watch, clipped to clothing, or carried in a pocket, allows you to locate the person in real time if they leave the house without your knowledge. This technology has genuinely changed the safety landscape for wandering in Alzheimer's. It is not a replacement for other safeguards, but it is an enormously valuable addition, particularly for a person who wanders at night or during windows when caregiver attention is naturally divided. The MedicAlert and Alzheimer's Association Safe and Found program, reachable at 800-432-5378, is a specific enrollment service designed for people who wander. Registration provides a network of support for locating a person who becomes lost. There may be a charge for enrollment, but for families managing active or potential wandering, it is worth investigating. Keep a recent photograph, or better, a recent video, of the person readily accessible. If they do become lost and you need to contact police, having a current image dramatically improves the speed and effectiveness of a search. Tell your neighbors. Tell the local police non-emergency line. A simple, direct conversation. My family member has Alzheimer's and may wander. Please call this number if you see them alone. Creates an informal community alert system that has found people who might otherwise not have been located quickly. Neighbors who know are neighbors who can act. This conversation takes 10 minutes and could one day be the thing that brings someone home safely. Now let's talk about prevention. Because while the identification and recovery layer is essential, reducing the likelihood of wandering in the first place is where the real safety work happens. The home environment is the primary arena, and the NIA's guidance on environmental modification is specific and practical. Locks need to be at the level of complexity the person cannot manage. If they can open a standard lock, you need a keyed deadbolt or a secondary lock placed out of their typical line of sight, either very high on the door or very low. The key should be kept nearby for emergency exit, but not visible or accessible to the person with Alzheimer's. Signs on doors can be surprisingly effective. Stop, do not enter, closed. These simple visual cues interrupt the automatic behavior of reaching for and opening a door. For a person whose cognitive processing is impaired, a clear, familiar directive sign may override the impulse to exit in ways that a locked door alone sometimes doesn't. A smart doorbell or door alarm that chimes when a door is opened gives you an auditory alert the moment someone moves toward an exit. This is particularly important for nighttime wandering, when the person may move while you're asleep and there's no visual monitoring. An alarm gives you the opportunity to respond before the person has left the premises. Fencing the yard with a locked gate adds another layer of containment without making the person feel imprisoned inside the house. If they do get through a door, a fenced yard means they remain in a safe, bounded space rather than immediately accessing the street or neighborhood. Window safety devices that limit how far windows can be opened address another exit pathway that caregivers often overlook. And here is one of the most practically effective prevention strategies the NIA identifies. One that is simple, costs nothing, and works on a behavioral level. Keep departure cues out of sight. Shoes, keys, coats and hats, suitcases. These objects are triggers. When a person with Alzheimer's sees departure-associated items, they may activate a going-out behavioral script, one that was automatic for decades, even when they have no coherent plan or destination. Removing these cues from the person's visual field removes one of the primary triggers for wandering attempts. Store them in closed closets. Move them to areas the person doesn't regularly access. This is a small change with meaningful impact. We're now at the section of today's video I want you to stay for, because everything I've covered, the identification, the GPS, the locks, the signs, the departure cues, these are all important individual strategies, and they all address wandering from the outside, from the environment, from the physical infrastructure. But there's a layer of wandering prevention that operates from a completely different direction. And it's the one that most caregivers discover only after something has already gone wrong. It's the question of what the person is actually looking for when they wander. As we discussed earlier, wandering is usually purposeful. The person has somewhere they're trying to go, a place from their past, a person they're seeking, a responsibility they believe they need to fulfill. And when that underlying drive is identified and addressed, the urgency to wander often diminishes. A person who wanders repeatedly toward the door in the afternoon may be acting on a lifetime habit of coming home from work. Engaging them in a meaningful afternoon activity, something that provides purpose and structure during the hours when the urge is strongest, can redirect that drive. A person who wanders at night looking for a family member may be soothed by a photograph of that person, a brief reassurance, or a gentle redirect to a comforting activity. This doesn't eliminate wandering, but it addresses the need underneath it. And a need that's met through another channel is a need that no longer drives toward the door. Talk with the person's healthcare team about wandering patterns, when they occur, what seems to precede them, what the person says or does that suggests where they're trying to go. That clinical conversation may reveal approaches tailored to this specific person's history and triggers. It may also raise the question of whether any medical or behavioral intervention could help. That question deserves to be asked. Let's bring everything together with practical actions. The first is to establish identification immediately before anything else. Medical ID bracelet, labeled clothing or both, on the person every day. This is the floor-level safety measure that must be in place before any other strategy is built on top of it. The second is to modify the home environment systematically. High or low secondary door locks, door signs, an alarm or smart doorbell for auditory alerts, fenced yard where possible, window limiters, and departure cues, shoes, keys, coats, stored out of sight. Implement these as a package, not piecemeal, because wandering prevention is most effective when the barriers are layered. The third is to investigate and enroll in formal support programs. Look into GPS wearables appropriate for your specific situation. Consider the MedicAlert and Alzheimer's Association's Safe and Found program at 800-432-5378. Notify neighbors and local police proactively with a photograph. Build the community alert network now. The fourth is to never leave a person with a history of wandering unattended. This is the NIA's direct guidance, and it is both the simplest and the most demanding instruction in this entire area. If solo supervision is no longer sustainable, that is the signal to build in additional help, whether through family, home care aides, or adult day programs. The person's safety requires consistent supervision, and your ability to provide that consistently requires support. Here's what I want you to carry with you from today. Wandering is one of the most dangerous behaviors in Alzheimer's, and one of the most preventable when the right safeguards are in place before an incident occurs. The families who navigate wandering most successfully are not the ones who responded most quickly to a crisis. They are the ones who prepared before a crisis happened. You have the information now, the identification, the environmental modifications, the community alerts, the formal programs. These are not complicated or expensive strategies. They are specific, practical, layered protections that work together to keep someone you love safe. Do not wait for the first incident to build these protections. Build them now, today, this week. Because in wandering prevention, the safeguards that were already in place are the ones that matter most. Before you go, here's something I want to plant in your mind for our next conversation. We've covered a great deal of territory in this series about Alzheimer's, from the biology of the disease through every major caregiving challenge. But there's a topic that sits beneath all of the strategies and practical guidance, one that I think is the most personal and the most important conversation in this entire space. It's about communication, how to talk to a person with Alzheimer's in a way that genuinely reaches them, that reduces fear and confusion, that preserves dignity and connection, that works across every stage of the disease. The specific words, the tone, the physical presence that makes the difference between a moment of contact and a moment of disconnection. That conversation is coming next. And if you want to be there for it, if you want to keep building the knowledge and skills that make caregiving not just more effective but more human, subscribe to this channel. Take very good care of yourself. The work you do to keep someone safe, every lock, every sign, every watchful hour, is love in its most practical form, and it matters profoundly.